Picture this, you're a struggling high school student living in the slums of Mukuru Kwanjenga, your education hanging by a thread. Then one day, you stand before the president, crack a simple joke.
The Swahilians once said, ukipanda pantosha, utashuka ambassador. I alighted at the ambassador.
And boom, your life changes forever. That was Daniel Owira's reality in 2013, when a drama performance catapulted him from obscurity into the national spotlight and ultimately into the care of the country's most powerful man then, former President Uhuru Kenyatta. But Otongulo's story is not the only one. Across Kenya, there are moments where tragedy collided with mercy, and the lives of ordinary children are rewritten by extraordinary encounters. Take Satrin Osinya for example, just 2 years old when a terrorist bullet tore through his head. The same bullet that killed his mother, by the way. But then, he would later survive.
After hours of an intricate surgery, it was removed.
Satrin's survival sparked not just national prayers, but also an act of compassion from then Nairobi Senator Mike Sonko, who would go on to change his destiny and that of his entire family. Then we have Nadia Cherono, abandoned and buried alive as a newborn, yet rescued, named and raised by none other than one William Ruto, who today is interestingly the president of Kenya. Just imagine that, from a forgotten child to now being one of the admired first daughters.
Nitamtafutia jina ingine, niongeza ile uko nayo. You will add in the middle here Cherono. That's the name of my mother.
And these are only a few, but the question that lingers, the one we are all asking, how have their lives unfolded over the years, especially under the weight of privilege, power, and the politics surrounding their new families? Let's find out. It was a Sunday, March 23rd, the year 2014. Joy Jesus Church in Likoni, Mombasa was full that morning. Songs of worship filled the air and everything felt calm. Then without a warning, gunshots shattered the peace. Terrorists had stormed the church, and in seconds, the hymns that were being sung were now swallowed by screams and confusion. Families scattered, some diving under the church benches, and others clutching to their children, praying the bullets would miss them. When the gunfire stopped, the silence was heavy. 6 worshippers lay dead, and among them was a mother who, in a final act of love, had thrown herself over her little boy, 2-year-old Satrin Osinya. She never made it out alive, but fortunately, Satrin did. However, Satrin's survival came with its own cruel twist. The same bullet that ended his mother's life was the same bullet that lodged deep inside his head. And in the middle of that chaos was his older brother, Gift Osinya. A picture of Gift, his shirt soaked in his little brother's blood, carrying him through the hospital corridors. That single image touched hearts everywhere and even sparked a wave of sympathy across the nation.
The bullet has stayed in his brain for over 24 hours since he was shot because Coast General Hospital does not have a neurosurgeon.
Their father Benson Osinya, on the other hand, was devastated, not knowing whether to grieve his wife or attend to his son's life-threatening injury. He publicly voiced his worry about how he'd possibly manage both tragedies, especially due to his financial condition then.
Hata sijapata nafasi ya kwenda kumwona bibi yangu, lakini alikufa jana. Wao ndio alikuwa mtu wa kwanza kupigwa risasi pale kanisani, kwa sababu alikuwa anatoka na mtoto nje. Wale magaidi wakaona ni kama huyu mtu ametuona aenda kuripoti, ndio wakaanza na yeye.
But Kenyans rallied, as is our culture. Thousands sent in contributions to help with the mounting medical bills. The Ministry of Health would also intervene, and eventually, Satrin was airlifted from Mombasa to Kenyatta National Hospital, where a team of neurosurgeons successfully removed the bullet. For many, that moment alone was a happy ending, but for the Osinya family, the story was just beginning. Nairobi Senator at that time, Mike Sonko, stepped in, adopting both Gift and Satrin, and just like that, their lives shifted from uncertainty to privilege. Over the years, the two brothers have grown under Sonko's care. They've gone to some of the best schools, scored good grades, and celebrated every milestone in grand style. For instance, when Gift completed his KCSE exams in the year 2020, with a grade B-. Sonko fitted him, gifting him a brand new Mercedes convertible.
Hii gari ni birthday gift nilipewa last year na baba yangu.
And when Satrin turned 13 earlier this year, his birthday was celebrated with a kind of extravagance most would mistake for a king's party. Well, as we speak, Gift has grown into a young man with major dreams. He's currently studying information technology and is set to graduate soon from Scott University. After that, plans are already in motion for him to head to Brighton University in London to pursue his master's degree. Meanwhile, Gift has been gaining experience in his field, recently serving as an intern at Diamond Trust Bank. Meanwhile, his younger brother Satrin is still in the early stages of his journey. He's now in grade 7 at St. Mary's School, the same institution that once shaped leaders like President Uhuru Kenyatta and Jimmy Wanjigi. And by the way, Sonko never forgot their father Benson Osinya. Now hear this. Immediately after his sons were adopted, Sonko entrusted Benson with the management of his apartment buildings in Mombasa, a role he holds up to date. Well, the Osinya story has been one of the most remarkable transformations witnessed by Kenyans, thanks to Mike Sonko. But their story is just one example of what happens when ordinary lives suddenly collide with royalty. For another glimpse of this, we turn to one Daniel Owira, aka Otonglo Time. Another life that was unexpectedly lifted, this time not by tragedy, but by talent. The National Drama Festival State Concert was underway in State House, Mombasa. And that was back in the year 2013. Among the many performers was a Form 2 student from Highway Secondary School in Nairobi, and his name was Daniel Owira. He stepped onto the stage with nothing much, only his purple gown and a few backup dancers ready to perform a narrative titled Otonglo Time.
Mr. President, help me as to find the true story of this young man, Sylvester Bwamfumbe, Otonglo Time. Enyi madugu, sikizeni leo, niwaambieni habari ya Otonglo.
The audience didn't know what to expect, but as his words began to flow, laughter as well began to build in the room.
Our college principal who double up as Dean of Students, Vice Chancellor, Matron, and also the official bus driver.
Within minutes, the hall was roaring, and even then President Uhuru Kenyatta, alongside his wife Margaret, who were the ceremony's chief guests, were leaning back in their chairs, laughing heartily.
This is the language being spoken by my cousin Obama Wadalego at White House.
By the time Owira was done, that moment did not just end with applause, but it was also the spark that drew the president's attention to Daniel, and few days later, an invitation to State House would follow, where Otonglo went in company of his mother and sister, the only family members that made ends meet to support his every ambition.
Wow, habari yako? Karibu sana. Karibuni.
From their meeting with the president, it was a complete turnaround for the family, because now Otonglo will be adopted as the president's son, and all his needs met by the first family, and his mother as well had her business expanded and made more stable. His sister Susan, on the other hand, was not forgotten. The president also vowed to support her, since at the time she was working as a volunteer assisting girls in the slums. And as if that was not enough, more doors began to open for Otonglo, from cameo roles on TV programs to adverts with major brands. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of the president's son.
Maharaba wanafunzi, they say make hay while the sun shines. But ghafla bin vu sambusa nilipofika Naivas.
However, with all that fame also came distractions. Daniel admits at one point he even felt like quitting school, simply because money and attention were coming in too quickly for a teenager to handle. Still, he pushed on, and in the year 2015, after completing high school, he secured a place at Multimedia University of Kenya. There, he pursued a degree in journalism and media studies, a path that greatly aligned with his gift of storytelling. And 4 years later, in 2019, Owira officially became a journalist. Not long after, he stepped into the professional world, and in March 2020, Otonglo began his internship at Oakwood Brand Consulting, where he focused majorly on digital marketing. Then in January 2021, another door opened. Daniel joined the President's Delivery Unit, and this is a special team within the President's office, tasked with ensuring that the government's promises are actually delivered on the ground. For close to 2 years, until September 2022, Otonglo was part of this high-pressure environment, gaining a front-row seat to how government works behind the scenes. And his career journey will not stop there. He will then move to China, where he enrolled for a master's in international journalism and communication. And by June 2024, he had earned his master's, even widening his scope as a journalist. Without doubt, Otonglo's life and that of his family took a 180-degree turn. And so far, even without a godfather, Daniel Owira's qualifications could easily land him a well-paying job in any part of this world, and all thanks to former President Uhuru Kenyatta for making all that difference. And in that same vein, let's now talk about another inspiring story of a once misfortunate child who also ended up becoming the president's daughter, and that was Nadia Cherono. Her beginning was nothing like the luxury she knows today. She came into this world only to be abandoned almost immediately, buried alive in the forest by her own mother. By the time Good Samaritans found her, part of her tiny body was already decomposing, yet against all odds, she clung to life.
It is a miracle, they say. No one knew she would survive.
Nadia was rescued and taken to Madri Ipolata Children's Home in Machakos, a safe place for children who had been left with no one to turn to. There, she grew under the care of nuns who gave her warmth and a fragile sense of family. Then in September 2015, fate rewrote her story. The then Deputy President William Ruto visited the children's home. Among the many children he met that day, one little girl stood out, and that was baby Nadia. Ruto was deeply moved by her story.
She was eaten by worms, which were coming out from her body, from all the body open organs, mouth, nose, eyes, in her private parts. The women rushed her to our center.
And in a decision that was commended by many, he chose to adopt her. He gave her not only a home, but also a name full of meaning, Cherono, a name after his own mother.
Nitamtafutia jina ingine niongeza ile uko nayo. You will add in the middle here Cherono. That's the name of my mother.
From that moment, Nadia would become the daughter of one of the most powerful families in the country. And interestingly, 7 years later, William Ruto will be ushered into history as Kenya's 5th president, and Nadia, once an abandoned child, now sits in the heart of ultimate power. Well, Nadia's grown to be more of a daddy's girl. She has occasionally been pictured walking into different prayer events alongside her dad, and she has even appeared multiple times at state functions just to keep her father company. Stories like Nadia's, Satrin's, and Daniel's do remind us that destiny can be rewritten in the most unexpected ways. I mean, these journeys prove that indeed hope can rise from the darkest of places. And beyond these 3 politicians, countless others have opened their hearts through adoption. From politicians to entertainers, the likes of musician Bahati, who took in one baby Morgan and gave him a home, to comedian Oga Obina, who has lately stepped in as a father figure to multiple kids through adoption. And many others fit in this list. Perhaps now is the time we pause, reflect, and give them their flowers. And if you've been inspired by these stories, don't just stop here. Like and share this video so that we keep telling the stories that matter. See you on the next one.